All right, patrons. What's going on, guys? I know it's been a little while. We're getting caught back up on this, right? Punisher Max Part 3, really. This is the conclusion to the first story arc, right? In the beginning. And for those of you guys who are playing a little bit of catch up here, you will find a link down in the, actually in this post. You'll find a link in some form of fashion. Maybe we'll just do it in the description of the video that we're linking to. But you'll find a link to the Uncensored Videos playlist, right? So you can get caught up on Punisher Max if you're just now joining us on our Uncensored journey, right? So you'll find all the boys, I can't remember exactly how it's set up, but I'll make sure it's set up correctly. And the way this is playing out right now at the moment, right, we've got three groups that have all kind of come together in this particular location, right, where the Punisher's being held by the CIA. Although I guess you don't really have three groups, you have two groups, right? You have the Punisher, who's there, but you've also got Bethel, who's the head of this particular field group that seems to have some involvement with the CIA. And then you've got Nikki, right, who's there as part of like the remnants of the mob, what was left over after the Punisher basically killed everybody. And they're kind of all vying to take out the Punisher, right, in some form or fashion, right? The CIA wants to use the Punisher, or at least Bethel does, in order to achieve his own ends, to achieve his own goals. And then Nikki wants to take out the Punisher because he's the one who killed all the various members of the mob, to kind of make a point, right? To basically say like there's a new outfit in town, and our first act to really show people that we're not to be trifled with is to take out the Punisher. One part is revenge, and the second part is a show of force, right? Is really what that is. And so at this moment, basically Nikki and his guys have infiltrated the CIA safe house with the intention of killing Frank Castle, only for him to basically bite the finger off of Nikki. And from there, all hell breaks loose, right? You've immediately got O'Brien who comes back, and of course she was working with Bethel as part of the CIA team. She starts spraying everything down, right? Like all hell breaks loose there. It's like those guys start getting sprayed down. While that's happening, you've got Microchip who ends up freeing the Punisher. So like at that point, that's gonna get bonkers. O'Brien ends up getting shot herself, although she's not yet killed. And then of course, like one of Nikki's guys basically pulled a grenade. The explosion went off, which took out a few people here and there. And then you've got like the Punisher who's now loose. And the first thing he does is he grabs the head of Nikki and slams it into Patsy. Now again, Patsy's one of the mobsters, but Patsy's actually the coolest guy here, right? Because he's old school. Like the way he's given to us, this is an old school guy, right? Like do whatever it takes, like nothing but like guts and brawn, right? So when the Punisher and him and the Punisher are facing off against each other, it's kind of crazy because Microchip basically gets kind of a wounding shot on Patsy, and it gives Punisher the ability to escape. And that's what this all is, right? Like it's all gone to pot. It was not supposed to go this way. One, the Punisher was not supposed to be able to get free. Two, like Nikki and his guys were supposed to snuff him out pretty quickly. The CIA, whatever in the heck was going to happen to them, happened to them. But for their side of the plan, they weren't expecting anybody to show up here, right? So like the entire thing has gone fucked in the span of like 3 minutes, right? And that's why it's all kind of bonkers, because from there, you basically have Punisher who grabs Microchip and they get him out of there, right? Now from there, you also have Nikki and Patsy who are being driven by Larry. He's the kind of goofball, one of the last guys standing from the mob. Who knows how it was that he lived, but basically it's kind of like, okay, we got to start getting guys out of here, right? We got to start making it, we got to bail out, and we have to find a way to go back and find the Punisher again. And so with Punisher and Microchip showing up to a safe house that Microchip had previously set up, one of the things that goes on here is Punisher starts talking and basically saying, I want to know everything that you have to know about Bethel. I want all your information on this guy. I want to know every bit of detail, every little piece of fact, the whole 9 yards. Now for Bethel himself, because of the fact that she's kind of deemed to be expendable, Bethel's one of these guys where he's just like, call the Department of Homeland Security if you have a problem. It's one of these things where the government would kind of sweep it under the rug and basically say, this guy is beyond reproach, right? He's part of one of these black ops wet work teams. He doesn't really exist, that kind of a situation, right? So you can kind of make those things go away pretty fast, either by sweeping under the rug or just by killing him and taking him out and calling it a day. But what this does is it basically sees him essentially getting a hold of his guys and calling in a gunship and basically saying like, I want a gunship and I want it at this location as soon as you can get it. And so what we end up doing is switching back to Microchip. And what Microchip basically reveals to Frank Castle is that Bethel is part of the CIA, but he also stands alone in the sense that his mission is one that he was tasked by the Central Intelligence Agency of maintaining, but couldn't actually do given any of the resources, right? Because the Central Intelligence Agency is for the most part, or at least is supposed to be, funded through taxpayer dollars. And taxpayers wouldn't be too keen on knowing that the CIA was engaging in all these like super terrible, horrible things that they were doing. And so with Bethel, the only way for him to really achieve his goal was essentially grab money from ways that was not really legal, but that the CIA could turn a blind eye to. More specifically, heroin dealing. And that's basically what's going on here, right? Bethel has essentially been funding his entire operation by basically peddling heroin heroin out of Afghanistan, sending it to drug dealers here in the States, and then making money off those drug deals, right? That's how he funds the entire operation. And so in response to that, you've basically got, Microchip, who really kind of looks at Punisher with this question of, what does this really mean for me? And the response of the Punisher is, because I'm going to kill you, because you're taking drug money and then you're in turn using it for whatever it is that you want to do. But essentially you're funding this whole process, or you're helping to contribute to this whole process of like the drug running market. And it's kind of a funny thing, because what you get is Microchip sort of calling in this double standard and saying, yeah, but like you take money from the mob, and like you take their weapons and you take their arms and armament and all that kind of stuff, and you use it for your own ends. But the Punisher's response is, well, it's different when I do it because I kill them, right? That's the double standard of Frank Castle. That's the biggest problem with his character, is that he really does kind of maintain this kind of double standard of what he does, how he functions, that kind of a thing. In reality, he's completely full of shit, is really what it is. But it allows him to kind of keep his own mindset going, allows him to keep doing what it is that he does, and that's basically it. But what we also learn is the reason why Bethel called in that gunship is because he knows where the Punisher and Microchip are at. And the reason he knows is because he had a bug planted in Microchip's phone. Now, this is kind of a big failing on his part, and it's one of these interesting things because Microchip is one of these guys where it's like he's super knowledgeable about the tech sector, and especially like the dark web. And so you'd have to believe that like this is the first thing he would check for, that like somebody put a bug in his phone or something along those lines. Like he would check for that religiously, especially when you're working for somebody as smoke and mirrors as Bethel is, right? This guy, this essentially a phantom. He just kind of comes and goes like a fart in the wind. And so with that in mind, the Punisher's like, well, then I guess we better get ready. We'll start breaking open all these crates with all these guns and everything, because like they're on their way here. And they are, right? Like with everything going on, you have Patsy and you have Nikki, who are basically following the trail. You've got Bethel and his guys who are showing up on the scene, and they're all loaded for bear, right? That's literally what that is. Like they're all loaded for bear. This is especially prominent because Frank Castle called them up and said, meet me here at this location, with the intention of being able to take all of them out, right? And so what this does is it kind of leads to the arrival of Patsy first. And when Patsy shows up here, it's one of the coolest things. The Punisher like literally just kind of sprays a circle, everything comes crashing down, or at least starts spraying towards Patsy. Patsy shoots Punisher out of the, off the roof. Everything comes crashing down, and Punisher and Patsy kind of get into this knockdown, drag out fight. Now, keep in mind, they are both older guys, but these guys would give almost anybody a run for their money, right? Shy of somebody like Wolverine or Taskmaster or Deadpool or Spider-Man or something like that. But any average Joe out there would never stand a chance against either one of these guys, right? Patsy's old school. He's got that old man strength, if you guys know what I'm talking about, but he's also got guts and brawn. And taking him to the Punisher, the guy's got some fighting experience under his belt. Like literally his eyes falling out of his head, and he's just like, let's fucking go. Like, it's just like, damn, dude, it's one of the most badass things that I've ever seen. And this is why Punisher Max is so awesome, because it's just bare knuckle fighting, right? Knockdown, drag out, no like theme music or anything like that. It doesn't feel that way. It doesn't feel like a fight scene from a movie when you've got like this action-packed music that helps to kind of build on the scene. It's like the fight, with Roddy Piper from They Live, right? It's just no music, no nothing, just bare knuckle fighting in an alley. And this is what's so awesome about it, right? Because with all that going on, like you've already got Microchip, who's kind of been sliced by Patsy, so he's more or less on his way out. But Punisher starts to realize this is not necessarily a good thing, because like when he was shot by Patsy, that rib is already gone. So he's fighting already injured. Patsy basically ends up picking up a shard of glass, and the two of them kind of start going at it again, right? And while all that's going on, it's just the two of them fighting each other. And that's why it's kind of bonkers, because in the middle of all that, the Punisher basically grabs Patsy, runs him to a window, and then throws him out. And Patsy ends up landing on basically a spiked fence, and is completely impaled. And then of course the Punisher ends up jumping on him as well. While all that's going on, you've got all hell breaking loose insofar as like Nikki shooting up all these different forces, these like government stooges and so on and so forth, and so like he's able to hold his own. So that's why these guys are so cool, is because you would see members of the mob as guys who are like easily dismissible, right? These guys are just kind of like there, and they do some things, whatever, but basically like there's really nothing to them. There's as a Punisher would say, there's no real guts to them, right? Like they lose their nerve really, really fast. They pick up a gun, think they're a soldier, think they're like, gung-ho, they know what they're doing, until like the shit hits the fan, then they piss their pants and run, right? That's how most quote unquote tough guys are, right? Like they're tough, like what is it? Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. That's true here. That's basically how this is. And so because of that, like literally Nikki just kind of goes bailing, right? Nikki goes running as fast as he can. Punisher picks up a shotgun, shoots Patsy in the face, and that's kind of the end of him. But then what you also ended up having here is you basically had, I guess you had Bethel, and you had his soldier guys, right? These members of the military, probably CIA agents or whatever. But like literally he's just kind of like, we're gonna spray everybody down. And when they're kind of like, hey, look, man, like we gotta follow, the rules of engagement here, right? We can't fire until we've been fired on. He's like, screw that, we'll just spray everything down. And so in response, they basically say, we have a go on Green 7. They literally cut him loose and they kick him out of the helicopter. And like, that's the end of him, right? That's the end of Bethel, right? The guy basically got a little too big for his britches. And so all these these guys basically come tumbling down dominoes, one after the other after the other. The only person, and really the cruelest person here, is Nicky, because Nicky basically, you know, with a kind of bandage on his head, basically ends up booking it, right? When he sends Larry out there to kind of be a bullet sponge, you know, he ends up making his escape from the Punisher. He walks up on a couple of cops who are supposed to be holding the perimeter, shoots one of them through the head, basically takes her out, kind of leaves her for dead, you know, makes the other one get in the car and then drive off, puts a bullet in his head, but no one knows where Nicky Savella is, right? He just kind of disappears. He just sort of vanishes, you know, and from there, you end up basically having, like, you know, Patsy, who of course dies. Bethel is basically dying from, you know, internal hemorrhaging, right? So he's out of the picture now. And then you get to Microchip. And this is the nature of the Punisher. That basically the Punisher, you know, when he comes back in, Microchip's like, you know, what's going to happen to me? Like, how is all this going to unfold? And the response to the Punisher is, you took money off of like a criminal enterprise, basically. That this guy Bethel was essentially involved in the drug trade in order to fund his own operation. He's no different than mob bosses or gangbangers or anything like that. And you threw in with their lot. That makes you as bad as them. And you know what I do with people like that. They get punished. The Punisher takes the shotgun, puts it to the head of Microchip, pulls the trigger, and blows his brains all over the place. With that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. Thank you all for being patrons. I love you guys as patrons. You guys are amazing. And yeah, I will catch you all later. Peace.